here in Covert right now with my friend Daywi Cook, who's a township trustee here.
I was just elected trustee of the Covert Township Board in a special election last year. Before that, I was clerk for 4 years, and before that, I was deputy treasurer for 3 years. So I've been in some capacity of public office for about 7 years or so. My parents, my family, they're from here. My great-grandparents immigrated here from Poland back in the 1900s. So my kids are actually the 5th generation from my family to live here. Coming back, I had no desire or goal to be in public office, but I just saw that there was an opportunity to sort of take our future into our own hands and go for it.
You know, there's a lot of people that I think wish that these areas could kind of like stay frozen in time. Like they just want it to be like it was like in the 60s, like when they were kids, and or they want it to go back to being that way. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, we've got maybe a different vision for like what we want these areas to be and for our families to experience. I grew up in St. Joe, just a little ways from here. I lived there for about 20 years now. Growing up, the community, people had been there a long time. It was sort of an older community, I would say. And over time, more people like my age, our age, have moved in, and we started kind of thinking about what the community could become from here. You know, what is the future of our community?
I think there's a lot of value in preserving the history of a community and honoring the folks who have paved the way for where we are today. Covert Township, back when it was settled, back in the 1860s, it was one of the most racially diverse communities probably in the nation, and it continues to be in Michigan for sure. And that was back during a time when racial integration was very common in this community, but illegal in other parts of the United States. We elected Black people to public office before Black people could vote. We have an integrated cemetery, military cemetery, and I don't think it was until 1940s, 1948, I believe, that was even legalized. We had integrated schools back before that was legal, and Lansing would ask for the roster of students, and they would intentionally omit the race of their students so that they could continue to get state funding.
The racial integration is so interesting because we had a conversation earlier about kind of the racial segregation that happened down in St. Joe and Benton Harbor, and how these two cities became basically like racially polarized communities. And to have Covert in the same State House district now with St. Joe and Benton Harbor, we're trying to think of all these ways that our communities can learn from each other, because we've all sort of been kind of pocketed and isolated from each other in a lot of ways, despite sharing a lot of commonality along the coast here. I actually knew very little about that history of Covert, and I find it so interesting that there was a community only a few miles north of my hometown that was sort of like in a lot of ways, like a beacon of integration and what, like, you know, a community can do together.
Unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of other development. So I think part of it is we've been very dependent on two very big tax payers in our community. We have New Covert Generating, and we have Palisades Nuclear Power Plant. And we all know that Palisades is closing here soon. And we have to take a real good hard look at our tax base. In order for us to have a nice, stable economy, we need to have a diverse tax base. We can't afford to suffer if one business closes down. Our community deserves more than that. We definitely need to take a look at how our government services can continue to survive beyond this.